Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you are joining us. If you are joining us live, that's awesome. You are here for episode 73 of the Productive Wellbeing Show. And this is our fourth of 5 lockdown panels where I am being joined by previous people who have been on the show who are so courageously going to share their lessons from the last 18 weeks since the UK went into lockdown, and we're now in this staged, phased, unlock, whatever kind of corona world we're living in. So today I have got Dinah Liversidge. She is the founder of No Box Thinking. We are also joined by Paton, who is the managing director of Quirk Solutions, and Chiren, who is the founder of Women of a Certain Stage. So as I said, this is our fourth of 5 panels. Please say hello when you join us. Let us know where you're joining from. If you're joining on replay, say hello on replay. And if you've got any questions throughout the next sort of 45 minutes, please put those questions into the comments. And finally, if you are loving what these guys are saying, because as I've said, it takes huge courage to share the highs and as well as the lows, then please hit that like button because they will truly, truly appreciate it. So without further ado, hello and welcome to my gorgeous panel today.
Hi guys.
Hi, hello everyone.
So thank you so much for joining us, and let's dive straight in. So what we're going to do is go round the panel, and each one of them is going to share, first of all, their biggest business or life lesson that they have experienced from the last 18 weeks in lockdown. So let's first of all start with you, Lauren. What would you say has been your biggest business or life lesson in the last 18 weeks?
That's a great question. And interestingly, it's business and life, and it's something I teach my clients, but sometimes you just need a bit more of a nudge to do things yourself. So my biggest life lesson and business lesson has been to slow down and do less so that I can do more. And it's been so powerful just watching how by just taking that step back and taking more regular breaks, I've been able to achieve way more than I did when I was running around all over the place trying to achieve everything all the time.
Amazing, amazing. That is such a great lesson. Oh, the other thing I need to say to you all is make sure you have a notepad and pen and are taking notes, because the stuff that these guys are going to be sharing is quality information. The last few episodes I've been taking notes, and it is really, really important, whether you're in business or in a career, that you are always a continuous learner. Life every day is a school day. So always be taking notes whatever you're doing, whoever you're listening to. So next, let's have Dinah. Would you say is been your number one lesson over? Oh, she's on mute. I'm gonna try to unmute her. Oh, we can't unmute her. Oh my God. Right, okay, we're gonna go to Chris, and Dinah is gonna leave and come back again. Chris, sorry. What has been your biggest tech corona?
Exactly, yeah. Talk for long enough that Dinah can go off and rejoin. I think for me, it's looking beyond the obvious and the immediate. When I started to look at the information that I consumed, and it's a life as well as business lesson, the things that I read, I realized that there were books that I really, really enjoyed, or an article on LinkedIn or Twitter that I really enjoyed, and then I really enjoyed it because it echoed what I believed in anyway, and the things that I believed in anyway. And so you're essentially just reinforcing your own bias and your own heuristics, and essentially living inside this little bubble. And it's kind of made worse really by social media because of all the algorithms that feed you stuff that it thinks you like, and you like, therefore it just becomes this ever decreasing circle. So I think the biggest thing for me has been to challenge myself to look for information and to read things that actually I don't necessarily enjoy, I wouldn't automatically have gone to, and then to ask myself questions around why haven't I enjoyed that? Because it's teaching me a lot about myself, it's teaching me about my perceptions of other things, but it's also bringing up information and thoughts and learnings that I wouldn't have otherwise accessed, because I would have just been blinkered to it. So looking beyond the immediate is mine.
Amazing. I really love that. They call that the echo chamber. So that we all live in our own sort of echo chambers, and everything here is the same. Yeah. I took a note of that one. Love that one. Dinah, we have sound back.
We do. Apologies for that.
What has been your biggest takeaway from the last?
Interestingly for me, and I love what Chris just said, mine almost sounds as if I'm saying the opposite, but it isn't quite the opposite of what Chris just said. I guess it's the only time as a coach I would ever say I've learned to think small. And here's what I mean by that. Social media, as we all know, is a pretty scary place at the moment. And the news is full of fear and angst and problems and catastrophe. And there's nothing I can do about that. It is all out of my control. But when I spend my day absorbing it, all that happens is I spend my life feeling out of control. And I realized when I turned off the big noise and retreated into the community bubble, and for all of us, that's different. I have several communities that I think I'm part of. So my sort of online networks, my business networks, my friendship networks, and the actual community in which I live, because it's tiny. We've got hundreds of people here rather than thousands where I live. When I did that, suddenly I could have an element of control back. I could have a positive influence. I felt I could do something that made a difference. And I think that's been a massive lesson for me as somebody who's always looking at the big picture, to make it really, really tiny and make that almost like a bit of a hug. There's a beautiful word in Welsh, a cwtch. And to have a cwtch is a bit more than a hug. And I realized I could create that for myself. And that's been a massive learning for me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm just being told there's a bit of a lag between us speaking and them catching up on LinkedIn and Facebook. So I'm going to say, before we go sort of through to the next questions, please leave comments and any questions that you've got for any of our guests on today in the comment box, and we will catch up with them shortly. And the next sort of, your second biggest learning then, Lauren, what's been your second learning over the last few weeks, months even?
Yes, this is very much a business one, and I love traveling. So I've built my business based on the fact that I can go to the States or Australia and get on stage and speak about menopause and educate organizations. And I've loved doing that and taken every opportunity to travel. What I've realized now is that I loved when we had the blue skies and the bird song, and pollution just seemed to really settle down. And all of a sudden life just felt, my shoulders went down by 2 inches, my heart rate went down. I engaged with my son in a way, my local community in a way that I haven't done since I've lived here. And it really made me think about only traveling once or twice a year, maybe going in longer blocks, but not going away quite so frequently. And that way I can reduce my footprint, but also have more quality time for my son. Because as a sole parent, I was finding that I might not see him Monday to Friday, and I'd be employing people to help look after him. He's just 13. So it's really made me re-engage with my son, with myself, with my community, and just rethink how I actually want to deliver what it is that I want to share with the world. So it's been really, it feels so obvious saying it in hindsight, but it's taken COVID just to give me that time and space to step back and really experience it and realize that that's how I want to move forward.
I love that. Thank you for sharing it. I think that is so important for us to recognize that what actually matters in life, and the fact that we make the rules and the plan, and we can do it however we want to do it. And I think that the best thing about COVID is that it's given us the ability to do things in a different way. And maybe that might also be the worst thing, but equally we've been able to try new things, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And the sort of the hybrid, this is the latest word, hybrid, the fact that we can kind of half do things one way and another way, I think is going to probably be here to stay. So yeah, exciting times. Let's go to you then, Chris. What has been your second biggest sort of lesson or realization from the last 18 weeks?
Yeah, it echoes what you and Lauren have both just said, to be honest. Essentially, that I've been a terrible parent for about the last 8 years by being on the road for 5, if not 6 days of every single week, right through the year. And my children are like 19, nearly 20, and 18. And I have missed the formative years of their life by being away and traveling a lot. Now, I believe that was because what I did and what we did as an organization had to be done face-to-face in workshops. I didn't think you could ever really get organizations together, get teams together to challenge their thinking, think about their plans, work out some of the problems, and do that virtually. I didn't even think that you could do all of the pre-meetings that led up to that and all the, the preparation for all of that virtually either. And I was a complete dinosaur. And I used to beat myself up about the fact that I was away from home, but I saw it as essential because I was providing for the family as a result. And actually, the last 18 weeks have showed me that we can do the workshops, we can do delivery, we can do coaching online. We've done so. It's pretty successful. So I certainly think that I'd be looking to keep a balance of that moving forward, some virtual delivery as well as keeping to a lot of the face-to-face stuff. But actually what I'm kind of committing to, and it sounds a lot like Lauren, is to actually do virtually all, if not absolutely all, of the preparation and all of the prior meetings and discussions online and virtually. Because it's clear that it can be done, and it's better for me, it's better for my family, it's better for the environment, as Lauren's pointed out, and ultimately it means that I am achieving as much as I was, but with a lot more spare time, which helps me relax and my shoulders go down, as Lauren saying exactly the same.
Amazing. This is like music to my ears. I love hearing anybody who's talking about how to maximize their time so that they don't have to work so hard. It will be so interesting to have a conversation about how you found being able to do like the initial work with clients where you're in the chemistry test. And so a lot of people believe that had to be in person. So how you've been able to kind of create that chemistry, but online, which is what obviously we've all had to learn how to do. But how has that actually been working for you in practice?
I mean, it's I think it was, as Andy Parks has sort of brought up in the comments, I think that if we weren't in the situation that we now are, I think that mindsets would have been pretty close to it. And everybody would have been resistant to it because we were kind of thrust into the situation and we had no choice. Everybody made it work. And it's only through actually having a go at it that we've realized how effective it can be and can continue to be. So, I have not met until this afternoon, or I've listened to Dinah and to Lauren giving their talks, on your posts or webcasts. I've not actually met them face to face, but just the 10 minutes that we had before we kicked off this session, I feel like I've really got to know them and I understand their characters a little bit and their style. So the chemistry for me, I think, is just as simple online as it is face to face. It's just that we would otherwise have kicked the can down the road and avoided it simply because we could have done.
I'm on mute. It's so good to kind of know that it can work, and from that trial and error, really, isn't it? That we're in the greatest science experiment there's ever been. And news is like, it's from a business point of view, certain areas is actually the innovation is working. Amazing. So guys, if you've got any questions for these guys, put them in the comments. Thank you, Andy. Loving your updates. Dinah, what has been your second biggest learning over the last 8 weeks?
I have to say, just before I say it, Chris, you absolutely touched, I'm sure, all of the four of us with what you just said very much, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I was really fearful about whether I'd be able to make the emotional connection online that we do make when we're on a stage or in front of people. And it's really good to hear other people acknowledging that that was a fear for all of us, Chris. And I was hugely pleasantly surprised with actually how positive that has been. And Abigail's show for me has played a big part in that, actually. So thank you. It really has. It's been wonderful to see how people have connected. My biggest learning from a kind of business perspective has been take every single opportunity you get to learn or take part. So that's been particularly true for me on topics that I think I know lots about. I have discovered the longer I'm in business, and it's well over 30 years now that I've been working, the longer I do something, the more I believe my own story about it. And so I think I've found the best way or the right way, or I believe it's really difficult because it always has been for me. And so every single opportunity that's popped up, if I've gone to my diary and it isn't a conflict, I've gone, yep, I'll do it. And I have learned so much from people who I would have said, I know that topic. I've done that topic for 20 years in business. They can't teach me anything about that. And of course, every single time I've learned something massive. So for me, that's been the biggest thing. We hear a lot of entrepreneurs say yes more. I would say yes to learning opportunities or the opportunity to meet people you've never met before. And don't always ask why. Just if there isn't a clash in the diary, do it. You're on mute.
Great advice, and I think that's such a great lesson for all of us as well. And it's something I've been doing, but because I've not been traveling up, and I live in Bristol, so because I've not been bouncing back and forth to London and taking half a day to do a chemistry check for somebody, you've got time. It's fantastic. It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things when I was working in London and I was at the Ministry of Defence, we had a bit of a club on a Thursday night where the theatres would push out £2 tickets to fill up seats. And so essentially the club involved just buying tickets to whatever £2 show was going. And you never really knew, therefore, it wasn't something you necessarily would have gone and seen. And just going along and just sitting down. And we watched some absolute dross, but we also watched some stuff that you sit there and go, wow, it completely blew me away. And I would never have had that opportunity if I hadn't just opened myself up, like you were saying, Dinah, to just new things.
Love it. We've got questions obviously to ask, but I just want to ask this sort of random question to you guys. Obviously you're still going to share your top tip with us, but here's an extra left field question. What has been something new that you've learned during lockdown that you had sort of never really done before, that you obviously kind of knew about, but you've tried it? For me, it's been baking, which is something that I never really liked because you have to follow the rules. I like to creatively cook, so kind of put things in, test it, see if it tastes nice. But with baking, if you don't, then the cake just does not rise, no matter what you do. So I've tried some baking and a bit of gardening, which has never really been my thing before either. So what's something that you've kind of found since lockdown that you've actually really enjoyed or been learning to do? Lauren, what would you say?
My biggest learning, totally, without doubt, has been watching my son grow and develop through homeschooling. So he will get himself up, he'll get himself ready, he'll do his jobs around the house. He's a big lad, he's 5'10", and front row rugby player. He's been training like he's never trained before. He's been training. He's been getting me to buy Wagyu beef and really good quality meats and doing loads of cooking, making rubs up and getting the meat. I mean, I don't eat meat, but he's been eating well, cooking well, and our conversations about topics that I don't debate with my friends, let alone with anyone else. So watching my son flourish and actually getting to know his character at a much, much deeper level has been the most rewarding, incredible, wonderful experience. And if nothing else, I'm so grateful to COVID for that, just being able to connect with him on such a different way. So that's probably been my number one thing, is to give someone else patience, time to grow and share and speak. And, you know, I'm a coach. I spend my life listening to my clients and just employing that a lot more at home. So that's been great. It's been really, really good.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you again. So guys, please hit the like button, because these guests of mine today are sharing so vulnerably, and it really does take courage to share like this, especially when I'm asking them a question that's just come to me. So Chris, what's something that you've tried during lockdown that you've actually enjoyed and never maybe done before?
Yeah, I hate to say like I'm always picking up and leading on from what Lauren's just said, but there's similarities. So I was brought up farming, and I always enjoyed farming and that side of things. And when you're farming, a lot of what you do is practical, hands-on stuff. So you build a lot of things, you construct a lot of things, you repair a lot of engineering, and I used to love doing that with my dad and with my grandfather. My fondest memories, sitting down and being shown how these things worked. And over lockdown, my son, who was the elder, and the 19-year-old, came to me one day and said, "Dad, I've got designs for a bar we're going to build in the garden." And it's like, okay, cool. You know, you looked at the designs and think, it's an interesting design. I probably wouldn't have designed it like that, but we were absolutely faithful to it. Ordered all of the materials, and basically over lockdown, he and I, side by side, did what I used to do side by side with my dad and my granddad. And for me, the biggest thing that I took away was how amazing it was to just spend time and to teach some of the things that I know and teach some of the things that I was taught. You know, at one point he said to me, "Dad, what exactly does the phrase 'that's close enough for government work' mean?" You know, and it's just little things like that you know that really, really work for me. And being with my daughter, being with my wife, you know, it's definitely been. I know it's not something that I've tried that's new, but it sort of is something that I've tried that's new, because I've never really had the time to do it for 8 years. So that's been a huge thing for me.
Amazing. They do say that time is the ultimate freedom. We're also busy working for freedom, and yet what are we working for? Because we might not have the time. So yeah, it has been a gift in many ways that none of us were expecting, and logically knew that if we spent more quality time with people, and it just goes to show, doesn't it, that common sense isn't common practice. And it doesn't matter what you know from the books, it only matters what you actually do, and you give it a go and see what happens. But yeah, you have to follow the rules when you're baking. But anyway, Dinah.
Wow, incredibly moved by what Lauren and Chris have shared. Thank you. That was really beautiful. And I have to say, it's reminded me quite how much I'm missing my daughter, who is several hundred miles away in London, and I haven't seen her since March. So hello, H, if you're watching. My big thing actually has been learning to look after my husband. Now, that sounds really odd considering how long we've been together. But John is the fixer. John always has been the one that kind of, when I announced I was going to do this crazy corporate job and Hannah was months old, he went, "Oh yeah, fine, I'll just drop everything and raise our child." And you know, when I had all those years in the wheelchair, he was the one that was always finding new ways and looking at different things. And you go do your crazy life, woman, everything's fine. And I've noticed he doesn't know how to accept being looked after. It's kind of his role. He does the looking after. And so I've learned, and frankly, I was really pants at it. You know, I did the stuff that you kind of say to yourself, okay, I've done the bits I'm supposed to do. But what about going that extra mile? What about making him feel looked after? And I've learned what, for him, that looks like. So, you know, we're taught as kids, treat others the way you want to be treated. That's just not true. Treat others the way they want to be treated, but take the time to work out what that is. And I've worked out that one of the things that makes him feel nurtured and loved and cared for, you are all not seeing this coming, I promise you, was that I had to learn to drive the tractor, because then I became part of his joy. And I've learned to drive a tractor during lockdown. Every single time I get in, I have to do the 3 deep breaths. He doesn't know that. Every time I get out, my legs are shaking so much, I feel like I might be sick. He doesn't know that either. Because the entire time I'm in that tractor, he is beaming. I haven't seen this man smile like this since we were being naughty in his parents' bedroom as teenagers, you know? That, for me, has been such a huge lesson and massive gift to learn, to look at the people we love and think, am I looking after you the way you want to be and deserve to be looked after? And those tiny bits of time we've all found that we do have, that we've gifted those to them and said, it's not going to be about me, it's going to be about you and what makes you feel treasured. That to me has been COVID's gift, and it's priceless.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that one. And a book recommendation on that, if you want to know what your partner's, they call it the love language is, then there is a great book called The 5 Love Languages. Can't remember who it's by, but I'm sure somebody can put it in the comments. Or maybe Dinah's read it. But this is a really good book to work out, because sometimes, especially in lockdown, one of the big things has been like people annoyed with their partner, and one partner can think that they're really doing a service, and that's by putting the bins out, because they call that an act of service. And another partner's like, well, I would really like flowers. I just want a gift. And that's because one of the love languages is gifts of, I can't remember them all, but like, it's quite interesting. Maybe you're nodding, Lauren, you've read the book.
Yeah. No, I think it's great, especially when people are disconnected, and it can be any relationship. It doesn't have to be romantic relationships. So whether it's acts of service or whether it's praise, whether it's physical touch. And I've got a client I'm working with just now who she did it 3 times because she didn't believe what it was coming back to say about herself. But actually, as she's allowed others to come in and look after her in the way that she really needs to be and genuinely wants to be, it's transformed her relationship. So it's really powerful.
Yeah, it's by Gary Chapman. Thank you, Helen. And somebody was actually telling me that they read the book and have used it to repair a relationship with their mother, because they didn't realize how their mother wanted, I think she liked acts of service rather than gifts. So they thought that whenever they bought flowers, that made her happy, but she just wanted them to help make the dinner and do the washing up. Before we go on to our final bit, guys, I would love another random thing that you don't know. Do you have any questions for each other? Based on what we've been talking about, you've watched each other on the shows, you've watched replays. Is there any question that you would like to ask? This is a circle of trust here. Any question you would like to ask each other? I'm going to be sharing all of mine on Friday, so don't worry. I am, going to bear all of mine. I'm going to share 8 things that I've learned over the last sort of 18 weeks. But is there any question any of you would like to ask each other?
I'm not normally this quiet.
Let's put me on the spot a bit. I suppose, it's we've talked a lot. I think we've talked a lot through this conversation so far about how it's impacted us and our families and our sort of immediate relationships. And we maybe haven't spoken so much about how it's maybe changed our professional side of things, what we do. So maybe lead that on. How has the last 18 weeks, 20 weeks for you, Lauren, changed the way in which you're doing things professionally, and how hold on to that moving forward. And the same for yourself, Dinah.
I went to do a talk at a client up in the Cotswolds, which is just an hour north of where I live, on the 9th of March. And by the time I came back, 80% of the business I had booked in my diary for the rest of 2020 had gone. And by the Wednesday at noon, by the 11th of March, it was all gone, because most of what I did was in person, on stage, and I had hotel bookings and travel, arrangements and all sorts that I'm still unraveling. So it was a bit of a wake-up call, and my default was to help other people. So I was part of an entrepreneurial program, and I spent 5 weeks helping other people pivot their business, helping them make sure that they had an income, they were doing something they were passionate about. And I woke up at the end of April going, oh yeah, I need to earn as well. So I really kind of thought quite deeply, got in contact with a lot of my clients and just tried to understand where they were at and what they wanted to do going forward. And I realized, actually, as I was going out my daily walks and going out for a run, that what I really missed was serving people at a bigger level, and not just training people to go and, in that kind of slightly distance way. I love doing it. So I've set up free 5-day challenges where I can have hundreds, thousands of women come together every few weeks, and they can all connect with each other, support each other. I can interject bits of knowledge, and they can take enough away from that I know that they've just been lifted and they're learning how to manage their perimenopausal journey that bit more. And also, clearly, from a business point of view, it's helping me get my name out there to a wider population as well. And it's also helped me get really super specific with the people I want to work with going forwards. And I realized that, like you were saying, you read articles that resonate with your belief system. Actually, I know that I work best. I know that I should, always challenge myself, and I'm always learning. But I do work best with women that are in very, senior roles, in quite challenging roles, in typically what you would call a male-dominated environment, because that's my background and that's where I can add the most value. So I've gotten super specific with my niche market, which I had done before, but this time there's no holds barred, and I've lost that kind of, I've got to work with everybody. I've gotten really, really tight with the people that I work with now. So yeah, thank you for asking that. I throw that one back to you as well, Chris.
Well, Dinah, let's hear what you think on that one. And well, give me a chance to think, seeing as I've had the mirror flip back at me whilst you're talking.
Thanks very much. No, great question, actually, Chris. I was really lucky that I started working from home in the early 1990s. It wasn't out of choice. It was when I had my accident. I was working for SmithKline Beecham, and they said, you know what, we're going to adapt a home office for you. And they were phenomenal. I mean, they even put in a downstairs toilet for us at home. Huge ramp outside my house, widened a room, everything. Gave me my own person in the IT help desk that I could call. It was brilliant. And as a result of that, and I guess because of the kind of medical traumas in my life that have impacted us quite often at the moment you least expect them, I had become, and I love this title, it sounds so grand, but I'd become what people call a portfolio entrepreneur. So I had 3 different lines of income, and so does John. So between us, we had 6 businesses, all very, very small, but that if all of them were flourishing, we might look a little bit like headless chickens. But most of the time, 4 of them are doing really well. And that, for me, actually, what it's done during this current situation has made me incredibly grateful that I had done that. And it's also made me realize I get to choose which of those I really want to spend my time on. So that whole reconnecting with your passion and saying, have I been taking those jobs to pay bills, or have I been taking those jobs because I still love doing that part of the portfolio? And that's been a big lesson for me. I've said no to working with more than a dozen people in the last 18 weeks. Now, as a small business owner, if you normally did that, your friends would all be saying, is something the matter with you? But I've realized I'm at a time of my life, and the lifestyle we chose and we created through kind of 30 years of really hard work, I don't have to say yes to the people I don't want to say yes to. And it's only because we'd had this wonderful, not putting all our eggs in one basket, if you like, that I've been able to do that. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think that it sounds odd, doesn't it? Because for most people, or for lots of people, setting up your own business and starting something from scratch already sounds pretty scary. And a number of people out there would feel much more comfortable being employed than setting something up from scratch. So for somebody like myself, it sounds like that's already pretty high risk. But I, to be honest, felt like and have realized that I've probably been running and developing the business in a very comfortable way. And I've not maybe taken as many risks as I could have done. I've not pushed myself as much as I could have done. I've not pushed the business as much as I could have done. So my sort of takeaway, if you like, from a professional perspective of lockdown is that I've actually been really pushing and investing during this time, which seems a bit counterintuitive because you don't know what's happening in the future, recession, economy, all that sort of stuff. But bringing more people into the business, getting more people involved, building the team, building the messaging going out, and almost, doing that, if you build it, they will come, which is a slightly scary place to be. But that's essentially what I've taken forward, because I think that I've been comfortable because I felt like I've been doing as much as I can possibly do on my own. And by bringing in more people and more people with a lot more capability than me, who are better at things than me, and better at the things that I'm not good at, then it's going to do better, and the team will grow and the business will grow. And I've just got to take a punt at some point, and I've decided that now is the time.
Amazing. Thank you so much for asking that question, and guys, for all of you again answering it so vulnerably, because it has been incredibly challenging times. And it's easy to run a business in the good times. It's harder to run a business in the tough times, because the tough times are the times when you have to really go into your core, yourself. Who am I? Like, we all know the things. You start a business to solve a problem, and you solve the problem, and then you get paid. But the reality of like a world where there are so many problems, which problem am I here to solve? How much, is somebody actually willing to pay me to solve it? Who would want to solve it? Do I want to solve that one? Oh, there's another problem. And so the entrepreneur is always spotting the problems, but it doesn't mean that we need to solve every problem. And then how does that relate to what we do in our business? So I think lots of people have sort of gone through the last 18 weeks of really going back to their core business, their business plan. Who am I? What do I do? Why do I do it? Who do I help? Who do I want to help? What do I want from my life? And kind of thrown it all in the washing machine. And I don't know if this sort of analogy works for you guys, but it's certainly something that I've done myself, and it washes around in your head. And then the cycle comes out, and it's kind of hang it all on the washing line and sort of work out, yeah, that one's going to go to the charity shop, that one's going to go to the dump, and that one, maybe that one, I'm just going to put that one on a post-it note on the wall and think about that one. And I think this is a time businesses have been started in lockdown, businesses have ended in lockdown, businesses have been innovated, pivoted, all of the jazz words. But the reality is that the world is always going to throw you a hurdle, and it is your job to decide in life whether you want to sit down in front of that hurdle and cry, or whether you want to work out how to lift your leg and get over that hurdle. We're not born hurdlers. We kind of have to learn how to do it, and it can be a little bit confronting, and it's not necessarily what we signed up for, but that's part of it. And I don't know about you guys, but I have lots of conversations with people who can't wait for lockdown to be over and want to go back to the normal. And I'm like, this is life now. And also, if you are an entrepreneur, you have to accept that your job is to solve problems, overcome them, work out how to build a helicopter, jump out of a plane, work out how to build a parachute on the way down, all of these cliches and everything. But that is the reality, that there is no manual. It's not perfect. We're just all making it up. So on that, I would love for each of you to share what your sort of top tip is for getting through uncertain times, and how you've maybe applied and used this top tip right now in your sort of your current business and life. So let's start with you then, Lauren.
There we go. I've been pondering this one, and I'd start off with one thing, then I've gone to another thing, and actually there's so much that I'd love to share. But I think the key thing really is that when you're going through uncertainty, it's control the controllables. It's making sure that you set yourself up for success, you put yourself first, and in so doing, if you are absolutely certain and sure about where you're at, what you're doing, what you're able to influence, then you are much steadier and calmer for those around you, and you don't waste your time and clutter your brain with lots of noise and distraction that takes you into a completely different direction. So for me, it's about just, you say if you get on a plane, you put your own oxygen mask on in an emergency, and that simply is obvious when you think about it, because if you can't breathe, you can't help everyone else, you can't help yourself. So it's just setting yourself up for success, knowing what you can and can't control, and focusing on looking after yourself first and foremost, so that you can be the very best for you and for everyone around you.
So your top tip then is always prioritize yourself first.
Yeah.
Amazing. And that is, that's ridiculous that that's a hard one to say, but it's true. You can't help others if you've got no energy left, if you've not looked after yourself. And
I think one of the key things, particularly with perimenopausal women, is that they tend to get themselves in a situation where they're busy looking after children, elderly relatives, a job, and they put everything and everyone else before themselves. So there's a lot of guilt associated with putting yourself first. And it's the most selfless thing to do, but most people will assume that it's very selfish to put yourself first. But actually, it is so powerful. And, going right back to what I said earlier on, you can accomplish so much more when you do that. So it's a brilliant thing to be able to do, and just give it some thought. And
I almost see it like you're giving other people then permission to do it for themselves as well, because you've shown them that you've done it and it works. And this is the kind of human that Lauren is now once she's done something for herself. So then it's like, okay, give it a go.
Yeah, saves a lot of time.
Amazing. Chris, what is your top tip in times of uncertainty, and how have you been using this during lockdown?
To listen more to Lauren. I don't think I'm particularly good at prioritizing myself, and I definitely like that. But mine essentially, and it might sound odd, people who don't know me that well, a former Royal Marine Commando, for nearly 19 years. But it's to find calmness. It's to find a way in which you can pause and you can reflect before you act. And I know it sounds odd coming from somebody like myself with my background, but actually the ability to go into some sort of meditative state, however you want to generate that, to give yourself the time to think, is, I found, hugely important in any crisis or period of uncertainty. I used to do it absolutely in the military, in all sorts of challenging situations. I absolutely do it now in my job. You often hear people say, oh, I like going for a run or a walk or something like that because thoughts come to me while I'm doing it. And it's because you've taken yourself away from that normal situation. So if you're not into meditation, if you're not into taking that mindful pause and thinking, which I believe in, take yourself out of the current context. So not so long ago, I went off and my friends nearby, my neighbors nearby, were shearing 1,200 sheep. Right, so I'm going to go and do a whole day helping him shear his sheep. And it basically was a complete break from everything I do, because I can't think about anything else other than all these sheep coming through being sheared. So actually that gave me the pause to then reflect and think and move forward with what I wanted to act on. So that calm pause, I think, for me is the biggest tip I would offer.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing the sheep shearing. So what would you say, like, how do you actually get this pause, and do you meditate, and how do you meditate? Just for people who are like, I don't know how to do that. Do you find when you walk the dog that this is sort of your time to be, or do you actually sit cross-legged on the floor and these are real questions people ask. How do you meditate? I mean, I'd certainly ask my meditation teacher.
So, I mean, there's a range of different ways, and that's why I kind of deliberately use the word of meditative state, because, you know, it depends on what you want. I will quite often enjoy a moment of calm whilst I'm out on cycling. But yes, I do also do box breathing, you know, breathing in for a certain amount of time, breathing out for a certain amount of time, slowing down my thoughts, slowing down my body. I do have a particular place that I like to sit at when I'm out walking the dogs. You're quite right. Looks over a beautiful piece of countryside, and I just sit and stop and pause, although it's a little bit more challenging now that we've got a 10-week-old puppy tearing around causing mayhem. But generally, you know, it depends where I have different places in which I feel that I can take that pause. And sometimes I'll walk past that particular spot when I'm walking the dogs. Sometimes I won't think about it too much when I'm cycling. It just depends. And I suddenly will think, actually, I want to take a pause right now. And I'll just do it in whatever way feels sensible to me right now.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing a little bit more detail. It's what people want to know, exactly how you do it. So Dinah, what is your top tip? What the thing that you sort of do in uncertainty and have been doing right now?
My big thing in times like this is to bin the should. And I'll explain what I mean about that. I think we all beat ourselves to death with the word should. I should be able to cope with this. I should know what to do. I should be able to build my business in a time of crisis, not collapse it, etc., etc. And whenever you catch yourself doing that, I always say to my clients, according to whom? So whenever I'm in a moment that feels like this is all too much, it's all taking over, and I can feel I'm kind of getting to the should precipice, I pull myself backwards because I know where I'm going with this. And you know, the biggest way this occurs is when we compare ourselves to others. And of course, it's usually on social media. So we look at their version of reality because, of course, they all tell us everything in their world. Not. It's the highlights, folks, you know. But we compare ourselves to that and we think I should be coping as well as they are. And I pull myself back from that. And usually, a bit like Chris, I find a place to go. For me, it's usually the trees. There is a wonderful saying in Welsh, which means to return to a peaceful state of mind. And and I'm not going to try and say it in Welsh because my accent's shocking, but the literal translation is to return to my trees. And that's what I do. I go and I sit. I usually take my shoes off and I stand on their roots and I get back from the should.
Amazing. Love it. Again, back to the trees, the trees, the trees. It's all about the trees. I've spent quite a lot of time in nature actually over the last 18 weeks, and I've found it has been very, very therapeutic, very, very calming, very peaceful. Yeah, amazing.
I must tell you, nature is not peaceful at 3 a.m. when it's about a barn owl sitting on your windowsill, which we've had for the last 3 nights. Very beautiful, but not calm.
Wow. Oh, to live in the Welsh countryside. Well, thank you so much for your time today and for your awesome honesty and vulnerability and sharing your stories, your insights, your wisdom with all of us. It is super, super helpful. Before we go, where is the best place for us to find you on social media? Chris, why don't you start?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, Chris Paton, Quirk Solutions.
Amazing. Lauren, where can we find you?
LinkedIn. Yes, please.
And Dinah?
Yeah, love to connect on LinkedIn.
Fabulous. So find all these guys on LinkedIn. All of their previous episodes will be going onto our YouTube channel if they're not already up there. I think some of them are, some of them aren't. And you, like I said this before about previous guests who've come onto the show, literally our conversations are scratching the surface. Each of these people are experts in their field and could talk about what it is that they do for hours. So be sure to follow them, find them, connect with them, and have further conversations about what it is that they do. People are saying in the comments as well, Lauren, that your circle sounds really good, your women's circle. So be sure to connect with Lauren about that. Right. Thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome to be with you. It's been awesome to see all of you joining us and in the chat. And I look forward to hearing from those on the replay how they have enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, which is tomorrow at 11 a.m. for our final panel. Stay safe, stay well, and don't forget to wash your hands. And if you have to, wear a mask.